Welcome back to chapter 8 of our crochet pumping blanket. We're going to be working on our granny square blanket. Our granny square corners, which is our firework corners. We have 4 of those to make, so I'm going to take you through the first one and then you can do the next 3 on your own. Okay, so first things first, let's get ourselves comfortable with our wool and we're going to make a magic circle. So this is how I do a magic circle. I find it much easier to get my wool into position and then create my magic circle, because that way I can take it off my fingers and my wool's already in place. So I'm just going to secure it an extra bit here around my finger just to give it a bit of girth. Then we've got our tail here. So what I do is I wrap it once and more around my index finger so that I don't use the 2 fingers. I find that cumbersome. That's just me. I also do this method for a slip knot as well. So I take my hook between my 2 fingers there, I pull that through there, and then I pick up my yarn, pull through again and just do another one just for added security. Then with this hand I just seal or anchor those knots there, and I've got my magic ring to start working into. So we're going to create our first granny square foundation row. So let's do that. So I've got 3 chains there, and then I'm just going to make my trebles like so. There you go. And then obviously 2 chains based on the pattern that I've written for you, and then just, there we go. And then 2 chains, and then another granny cluster, I'm just going to bring my camera down a little bit closer for you. So at the moment we're working in the birch, which is this colour. I didn't have enough of these to put on because I took them on holiday and did them. So we're working on the birch, and then I've got these colours here for the blanket. So all in all there are 6 colours to this blanket. Which I know you know, because if you're doing on chapter 8 then you already have it, and if you have the kit. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I can do my last 2 chains, and then what I'm going to do is take my tail end and just pull it tight, and you can see how it starts to pull tight. So I use the same method for magic knots, magic rings, as I do my slip knots, and then it's 1, 2, 3. Go for the first loop like so, come back through and then push. So you come back through and then push again into the back one, and that should take you through. Oh no, I've missed it. Try and keep to the top of it and then just pull it over, and then you have the 2 V's on top. Then you know that you're through the center of your chain, or at least through the 3rd. So if you're looking at the anatomy, if you've done the course, I'd talk about the anatomy of stitches, where you have the top 2, which is the V, and then you have the 3rd one here. So there's 3 loops basically that work up your chain space or your chain stitch, and it's by going through the top one and then the second one that gives us that we can go straight through. I know it looks a bit weird, I'm sorry, but it's kind of the only way to explain. So that's our first segment done there. I'm going to pause, realign myself, and then we'll go on to the next colour, and we'll start making up our firework granny square. Okay, so we're going to be starting the next row with the burnt orange, and I'm going to add in the burnt orange into the corner. So I've already cut this and I've done my tail. I'll weave them in later. You can, if you want, weave them in a little bit into the stitch heads, so that you can work around them a little bit, so they're not so much in the way, and do it that way. There's lots of ways to do this, to be honest. I'll just keep doing this for a little bit, and then at least now I've got something to work around later, because we're working in different colours as well. It makes it a little bit of a nightmare, because it's not like you can just diagonally weave through. So I'm just going to quickly just weave these kind of in a bit lazily, but at least it's sort of there, and it's not going to be too much of an issue. Obviously with the tail from your magic, you'll need to do that. So if you watched all my other videos, you'll know that this is how I attach my wool. So I always tend to go straight to the corner because I think that's better. So let's just move those out of the way. Anchor my wool obviously in my hands. I'm ready to go. You can see how I'm anchoring there. Push my little make against it. Take my hook through. Now if you notice, it's lined up to where I'm actually going to be working through. Pick up my yarn and then do a starting chain of 3 because we're working trebles. So you can see there's no knots there. That's completely attached. What I do next, just to give it a bit more of a guaranteed, is I move it to the left hand side and I have it in line with the stitch heads. So we're just going to start a typical granny cluster corner, which is 1 cluster, 2 chains, and then another cluster. 1, 2. So we're not starting the firework stage yet. That will be when we come to do our next round, which is our 3rd row, and we'll be working on our single clusters, which is where we'll do that part. So in this stage we've done our foundation row for corner spaces. Now we're filling those corner spaces with our foundation corner rows. So chain 1 because we need that space for the flats, and then do your next corner clusters. Okay, so it's really simple. It's nothing complex. In fact, if anything, all we're doing is basically a granny square, and we're just changing the alignment or placement of our posts, and that's really it. It's so simple. But these are nice little projects you can either do when family are over, or if you're going out to have a coffee and you want to take some crochet on the go and you just need to do these little bits. So the point of these corners were to refresh the brain and kind of lighten the load of a heavy blanket. And then when we've done this section, when we've done this one, I'll show you how to double crochet together. Okay, so I've carried on doing the corner cluster here, my chain 1, and I'm going to work now and create the first firework cluster. So yarn over and do your normal treble into this chain space. So everything's still living within this chain space. It's all about where your stitch lies, where it sits. So at the moment that treble sits within that chain space, but the second one that I'm going to do is a double crochet. So you yarn over and yarn over again, like so. Then you find your middle post. So you've got your 3 clusters, your 3 trebles, sorry. You want your second cluster, second treble. Go underneath it and behind, so it sits on top of your hook like so. And then just pull through 2, pull through 2, and then you've got your 3rd 2, and that should take you to the height of your treble. Then you just do the treble, the last treble into the same stitch space. So that's how your firework treble looks. So we're going to go chain 1 and then do our next corner cluster. So it's basically, when I say skip the stitch behind, when you come to do the 5th row, I think it is, 1, 2, and then our next corner cluster, like so. Basically everything lives, it still lives within that chain space. It's just that we're extending that 1 stitch to anchor around that middle post there. So it's still part of that same space. So whenever you do a front post, just because you're changing the alignment or where the stitch is anchoring to, doesn't mean that the stitch behind it belongs somewhere else or it belongs to something else. It doesn't mean you add an extra stitch in, because that stitch still remains there even if it isn't anchored into the same stitch on that row, if that makes sense. We'll come back to that, but just to be mindful of it. So I'm going to leave you there. So obviously just follow that and repeat, and then finish with your slip stitch into that one. And then when we do the next row, obviously you're doing 2 of these rather than 1 of them because you've got 2 chain spaces there. You'll be working into this row, so it'll elongate that, and then you'll have 2 there. So I shall come back shortly. The next colour for this one is we're going to check. We've done burnt orange, we've done fox, and it'll be mauve, and then we'll go into birch. So, but it's all in the pattern, so don't worry. So I've changed the colourway to mauve now, and you can see how you've got this lovely graduation happening between the colours, and I really like this way this has developed. So we're going to finish off on the last cluster. As you can see, we've got 2 granny square spikes and how they work into this row. So row 3 worked in row 1 and row 4 worked into row 2. So let's just finish off and treble into that space, and then double crochet, double treble crochet, I always forget that word, into there, treble back into that space because that's where that lives, and then chain 1, and then you work into your chain space slip knot. Okay, quickly weave that in because I have been doing it with the others to make life easier, and I can cut all those off in a minute, so that's not too bad. So I've got my tail that I started here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from behind with my hook, sorry, keep coming off camera, and then go back through into there, and then just work reverse through, and that's my tail end. So I'll just go through here once more into the corner space and pull back. Oh. Pull back there. There we go. I'll cut that in a bit. I'll cut that after I've done the next row because then I know for a fact it's secure. So I'm going to work in the reverse direction because obviously my tail end is there. So let's just pull it through the stitch heads one at a time. Like so. There we go. And I'll just bring it through that one there, and then I know I've quite a length. If I want to weave it back in later with a needle, then I can. That I'd say is the quickest way to do it. I'm tempted to use this granny square to make a firework because I just love that colourway. I'm tempted to make it into a cardigan somehow because it just looks too pretty, and I've seen a couple of designs and inspiration photographs that I'm thinking, I quite like that. So watch your space, you never know. I might even combine it with knitting because I'm really enjoying my knitting at the moment as well. So I'm going to pause it there, and then I'm going to just realign the new colour. Okay, so now I'm going to be working on what I like to call a closed granny square. We'll be working that into DC, and we'll be meeting up with our spikes here and then joining our half trebles around those. So what we'll do is we'll start in this corner here. I always start in the corner, I always think it's less obvious. I'm gonna do the holding chain and then do another chain, so that acts as my first chain, and then I'm just going to double crochet in 1, 2. I only do simple corners because you can see how that fills that space, even though they're smaller ones. We're going to work straight into our first stitch, so you should have 3 double crochets working straight into there because we have 3 trebles below it. Then obviously 1 single because we have a single chain there, 3 into these, and then obviously we're hitting now. So we've done that one into that one, and now we need to think about this one. So we need to do a half treble because we need the height of the half treble to come around here but leave enough of a height that it corresponds to the double crochet. So we're going to do a half treble. Oh, needed a treble then. So you can see how that lines up with that height because some of it's gone around there, and then it corresponds to that. So then you're back to double crochet into that head, double crochet into your chain space, double crochet into the treble below, and then half treble. So yarn over, go underneath your post, pull back through, and then go through all 3. skip the stitch behind and you go into the treble that's there, the last treble in that cluster. So as you can see, when you look back, you can see that you haven't gone into, so that one's spare there and that one's spare there, and then one into there, and then you can just carry on as normal into those. So as long as you've got 3, you know you've got the right count, because that's all your stitch heads covered. Okay, and then you just do 1 double crochet into corner, chain 2, and then double crochet, and that is pretty much your one side, and that is how it works. So if you're reading my text, I am struggling a little bit to explain it. I don't know if it's because I've got this cough, I don't know what it is, but when I say skip the stitch behind it, I'm not saying skip the stitch and then move ahead. I'm saying just make sure you're not putting another stitch in the stitch that lies behind your post, because you'll be adding a stitch rather than corresponding that stitch placement. So this is about stitch placement. So each stitch has gone into each head of the stitch that has been made in the row before. This one is being placed around the post, but that stitch above it still corresponds to that stitch. It's just that you've just placed it differently. You haven't placed it in the stitch head, you've placed it around the post. So you're not skipping a stitch, you're just being mindful that a stitch does not belong in there other than the one that goes around the post. I hope that explains that a little bit more. Again, I'm going to pause here and then come back with the next. So I've jumped ahead a little bit. I think I was enjoying it far too much, but because those bits were easy, and I know that obviously if you're here and you're doing chapter 8, sorry, that you don't really need me to bottle feed you how to do these rows. The only thing I will say is when you do your starting chain, we'll just go straight into the 2 chain and then our stitch. So if it's a double crochet, it'll be a 2 chain, a starting chain of 2, and then we'll do our 2 chain, and then we'll do our double crochet. I will write this all up in the pattern. I know you see me do it differently on this row, but I think it works better when it comes to counting, because you see this little lump here, we don't want that. That means we're going to end up having either a longer row than we need there. We're going to make a mishap. So what we'll do is I'll write this into the pattern. I will say that there's been a correction in the video, and hopefully if you read the pattern first, you won't make that mistake. And just only go into it once, do not go into it twice when you see that lump. As you can see here, I've done it differently and it works better. So those things happen, we all do them, and I'm kind of left it there purposely for you to see, and plus I didn't want to really frog it back and then have to redo it. So that's the end of the video for the granny square. Remember, you've got to make 4 of these. Now if you decide if your wool is low in certain colours and you want to do different colours, feel free, it's your blanket. So if you want to change colours based on what more colours you have more of, then you do that. The only thing I would say is just be mindful that obviously you are going to be joining with the green. So if you put the green in, try not to have it too much on your edge, have it more in the centre maybe, and that way you're not going to get this thick band and it's going to look different to your other squares. So there you go, my lovelies. That's that video finished, and I will see you shortly.